Hi everyone, welcome to Game Maker's Soft Launch Review. Today we're going to be covering Zynga's Farmville 3. This is my level 1 farm, and so as you can see I've got a little bit more levels to go before the farm gets a little better, but we'll get there. Anyway, today with our group of experts we'll be talking about some of the strengths and weaknesses of the game, including what we believe are the prospects for worldwide launch. And we'll be talking about ways we think the game can be dramatically improved, especially from a monetization perspective. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome everybody to the next edition of Soft Launch Review. I am here with Julkunen from Refinery, Jeff Witt from Beyond Games and also doing video games consulting, and Manu Kumar from Deconstructor of Fun and also doing video games consulting as well. So welcome guys. Today we're going to be covering Farmville 3. And I thought we could first start by just getting a better idea of where Zynga is in terms of the launch. So as we can see, just looking at some of the Sensor Tower data here, that the game seems to be soft launch in basically about 3 countries. I don't know what these like 34 and 2 installs in Australia and New Zealand are, but from the look of it, if you're launching in the Philippines and Thailand, Malaysia, it's probably a technical soft launch, meaning they're just trying to look at performance, look at device device performance, load times, things of that nature. And so I don't think we can be too critical yet in terms of a lot of the systems, whether they're fully baked out. But we should expect that those things are there. So, I mean, I think from there, maybe we could just jump into like high-level thoughts, and I can go and kick it off. And so, in terms of the high-level thoughts as far as the game, for me is I actually think that Farmville 3 is a pretty fun game. It doesn't have a lot of innovation, right? So it's to me it's actually pretty light, but I think it might just be enough to make the game interesting for its audience. And from my perspective, and please feel free to disagree with me, it seems like there's really only two key things, right? Which is the animal gacha with the animal evolution progression, and then second is this notion of farm hands that can be assigned different tasks. And kind of maybe a smaller thing is I kind of like the land plot unlocking system that they have, and I know that it kind of exists, but the way that it's kind of presented feels a little bit better, and it really reminds me of the old Facebook games on social, like I forget what they were, like Castleville and some of the other villes back in the past. Yeah. That in terms of a look and feel. And when I look at the other games like Heyday, Klondike, Township, those games actually feel a lot more dated. And Klondike in particular doesn't even. I mean, I know it's doing well, but it doesn't seem like it's a game from this decade, right? So I'm like, what is it? So again,
Klondike is an absolute mystery. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it's because I just don't understand this category well enough. But I don't know. From my perspective, although I'm a little bit disappointed in terms of the level of innovation and what seems to be a little bit of a paint job over a Heyday plus 2 mechanics, I actually think so. So for me, the key issue is, how much of that farm sim audience has lapsed, and then if Zynga, and there's question marks about how good Zynga is at user acquisition. That's kind of like one of the key questions in the industry. But one of the key ways that Clash Royale was able to do so well from the beginning, kind of the word on the street was that. One of the big factors was they were able to take a lot of inactive Clash of Clans players, and from a user acquisition marketing perspective, they were able to reactivate and retarget a lot of those players upon launch. And so, if Zynga is able to do something similar, and if there is like this large lapsed audience that kind of comes back and sees this, in my opinion, I would say that Farmville 3 will be from a product quality perspective, in my opinion, it'll be the best in market when it hard launches. I actually think it's got a pretty good chance. So from my perspective, I would expect a mild to moderate success from this game. Joel, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Having played the game for hours and hours now, level 20 or something, I would say that, like you said in the beginning, there is not too much like a totally new innovation, but that isn't always a bad thing. Of course, they clearly want to kind of maintain the old look and feel and not change things too much. There's clearly showing kind of merge dragons, merge magic stuff showing in this game as well. You mentioned the merging of the animals and kind of seeing the path, where the progression path that you get the kind of the first cows and the better cows, and then they start to produce more and more advanced ingredients that you use kind of for more and more advanced outputs. And also the unlocking of the land reminds me of merge dragons and merge magic, and the farmhands also they of course were apparent also in the Farmville 2. I think that they can become something of a really great innovation if they are built a bit more. At the moment, they are kind of superficial stuff, and the RPG mechanics of developing them is quite light. But let's see what they come up with. That I really like the look and feel, the kind of visual look of the game, and as you pointed out, in comparison to Heyday and like Klondike Township, it's really looks really good. I also enjoyed the game. So I think at a high level we can discuss on more details later. But on a high level, I see that there's clear chance of having actually kind of a genre leader if everything goes well in the future.
Jeff, what do you think?
So from a monetization perspective, it's kind of hard to evaluate games in technical soft launch just because, that's not their primary focus.
Right.
But I think they've set themselves up for, there's a lot of potential with the game. The farmhand system, depending on where they take it, could be pretty deep. And, there's good ways to monetize off of that. Joseph, like you said, I really do like how the farm unlocks over time. I feel that it gets too. They don't incorporate story enough in unlocking those plots. I know they have the story tasks, but almost everything seems level gated, and it just. I wish that they would utilize story more, like a lot of other casual games have.
Manu?
Right. Yeah, actually, I think what Zynga has tried to do with Farmville 3, why they have gone with this more safe approach of things with a major visual upgrade and minor innovations. I started playing Farmville 2 Country Escape yesterday just to see, okay, where was that game compared to, the experience in Heyday and Township. And if you play Farmville 2 Country Escape versus Heyday and Township, you really see the dated systems in that. I mean, even from a perspective of, Zynga just wanting to have a game out there that is up to the level of Heyday and Township, Farmville 3 is probably that attempt also. So, so basically Farmville 2 Country Escape, I haven't played Tropic Escape, but Country Escape, which is also their leading revenue generator in the Farmville games, it's really, really dated. So it from that perspective also it makes sense. Maybe they've gone with a safer approach right now with minor innovations to not really rock the boat too much. But yeah, things that I really liked. One was this whole animal loop that they have, and the second is the balancing that they've been able to maintain between the order board, the animals, the farmhands, and the land expansions. All these four systems. So I haven't really gotten into the numbers behind it, but all of them feel really well balanced, and the spacing of getting new animals, having enough space and enough of these shops or whatever to keep the animals, and having enough land to keep the shops. It all balances really well. The one, I don't have too many negatives because this is a technical soft launch, so I would rather call them opportunities. But one clear negative I'm seeing is, the gacha monetization aspect of the whole game. So because of this, like really good balancing between the order code and the animals, and keeping the animals and they evolving and leaving the farm, the need to really buy new animals from gacha isn't really there. So if gacha is going to be a primary monetization arm for this game, it I don't feel the pinch to actually go and buy the gacha right now. Um, but yeah, in terms of opportunity areas, I see like three really big ones. Like Jeff mentioned, the narrative aspect of the game. So at least when I was working on Farmville 2, narrative. There was a full team of narrative designers on the in that 125% team, and narrative is something that really jives well with this Farmville audience, and that probably unfurling through all the different farmhands and all these different characters, and they having relationships between themselves, etc., etc. It could be a very, very big retention opportunity over there. The next big one is definitely events, and this is also. I think, the CEO, Frank Chibo, he commented on the earnings call saying that this game has a lot of, in its backend system, there are a lot of event hooks already planned. So they're definitely like planning for having a heavy event-driven system. And the final one, and something that has really driven a lot of revenue in the previous Farmville games, is the whole social aspect of things. And that can be divided into three parts. So there's competition, cooperation, and then there's co-opetition also. And, all these three things have been pretty strong revenue generators for some of the previous Farmville games. And yeah, since this is a technical soft launch, I'm sure this is going to be coming up later. But yeah, these would be like the three really big opportunity areas for growth for this game.
And then just looking in terms of revenue analysis, I thought one of the things we could first start by looking at what is the potential for Farmville 3 relative to the competition in the market. And so when we look at some of the other key titles that are in their category, we see games like Township, Heyday, Klondike Adventures, and then obviously the two other Farmville games, Farmville 2 Country Escape and Farmville 2 Tropic Escape. And we can see that there's a pretty big gap between, the number one title in the category Township and then the Farmville games. So from my perspective, I do think that there is room for potential growth if Farmville 3 actually, is a good product and is able to perform well. And then from a revenue per download perspective, we see also that clearly Klondike Adventures has the highest revenue per download. And that, I do think it does seem like there's room for improvement. And it's kind of funny that Township, which has the most overall revenue, has one of the lowest RPDs, revenue per download. So that was kind of interesting. And again, all these revenue numbers, the revenue per download numbers are on a worldwide blended basis. Okay. Manu, do you want to speak to the Zynga portfolio revenues?
Yeah, so, one of the first questions that popped up for all of us was, okay, why Farmville 3? And second question was, why is it taken so long? And so I just want to talk about, what could we look at from a data perspective to kind of get a picture of why Farmville 3 and why now? And two really telling data points for the first question, at least. The first one is, this is taken from Zynga's Q2 2019 earnings presentation, where they split out their revenues by game and genre. And you can see over here that simulation doesn't really figure anywhere. And then when you go on to the market perspective, and you look at from a market share perspective in the simulation category, both the Farmville 2 games are at around a 5% of a total market share. And that's definitely not even, I don't think it's even top 10. So So from both these perspectives, for a game that used to be the face of the company at one point, it's it's coming out of the Farmville 3 with a more up-to-date look and a more up-to-date feel in terms of UX and probably more up-to-date gameplay systems. It's kind of the obvious decision to make. So this was it. Kind of like starts to make sense, once you look at where Zynga is positioned in the market and how its current Farmville games are performing in terms of its portfolio. And then it goes into the second question. If you could go to the next slide, JK. Yeah, so then the next question was, why is it taken so long for the Farmville, Farmville 3 to come out? Farmville 2, so as you can see with the orange section of the graph over here, Farmville 2, and this is Country Escape, launched somewhere probably mid 2000 or early 2014. And I think I just kind of like roughly wrote the timeline and this 2014 launch, and I think the transition to the India team happened around like 2016, somewhere then, where it got into the live ops side of things, and during that time, obviously Zynga has like really tried to squeeze the lemon with this game, but again, from a portfolio perspective, and with the 2018 acquisitions of Merge Dragons and Empires and Puzzles, the orange line just completely disappears by the end of it. So even from this perspective, I feel it feels like the right timing to come out with a new game and the right timing to get a new foothold or a solid foothold in this simulation market. So
right, and mind you, we didn't go over people's backgrounds this time, but just for you actually worked on Farmville in the past, right?
Yeah, actually, I worked when I was working at Zynga in India. I worked on the Farmville 2 web game, and while looking at this game, there's a lot of one can see like a lot of the learnings that we had in that team can also be like translated over here. And I guess once we get into the gameplay portion of things, we can talk about that some more. So.
Okay, so just kind of proceeding forward, I just wanted to go over some of the audience analysis just to see, at least from a competitive perspective, the type of users that some of the other games have. And so just starting with Farmville 1 and 2, I aggregated the audience there, and we can see that, to me, this is a little surprising in that when looking at the demographic information that it's only skewing a little bit female. I would have expected to skew a little bit more strongly female, and I actually would have expected the game to skew older, but it does seem like the bulk of the audience, if we trust the Facebook audience insights data, is a little bit younger in the sort of 18 to 35 category. So to me, which was a little bit surprising. And then from a page likes perspective, this is not super surprising that, but a couple of interesting things is Reba McEntire kind of shows up. Like why would the Farmville audience like Reba McEntire? But that was kind of interesting. And
who is Reba McEntire?
Country singer.
Oh, okay.
Country singer.
They had like a country singer even featuring in one of their
actually
like
maybe
right
that actually does make sense, right? Like if you're if you're in farmland and like you probably like country music, so
exactly
makes sense. And then Heyday, the surprising thing about Heyday was that Heyday had a stronger younger skew, and was weighted more male than female, which to me was a little bit surprising. And again, for me, and I'm not an expert in this category, but I would have expected a stronger, more in the 35 to 44 range for across, games in the entire genre, and I would have expected all of the games to skew more female. And then when we look at audience insights in terms of the page likes, we see a lot of Thai-based, likes, and it's like, wow, that's kind of weird. And so, just digging a little bit deeper, why are so many? Why do so much of the heyday audience? Why do they like Thai pages, Facebook pages? And when we look at it, it's because actually, when we look at the audience, the the bulk of the audience that plays Heyday is actually from Thailand, and it's heavily, it's heavily slanted towards the Thai audience for whatever reason. And then finally, looking at Township, here we see a little bit more of the type of distribution that I would expect. More female, slanted a little older as well. And interestingly, that same musician, Reba McEntire, kind of shows up.
And Kevin Hart. That's awesome.
Okay, and I know we typically talk about gameplay analysis separately from meta, but just given the fact that in terms of this type of a game, it's largely a graphical menu-based game, right? So it's kind of highly tied to the systems. I thought maybe we could just talk about both in a little bit more detail. And Joel, maybe like starting with you actually.
Yeah. The power score that we have the KPI. The KPI measuring the kind of the feature sets commercial potential in the market kind of. In Farmville 3, it's in the high 70s, low 80s region, which is really nice for like we've been mentioned many times at the technical soft launch. There's still a lot of features to be introduced to the game, so it's looking pretty good, or really good actually, taking that into account. Manu actually touched many of the kind of missing things also based on our data. So the biggest missing links in order to kind of increase the KPI or the potential further would be deeper social elements like Manu mentioned, co-ops, guilds, competitions, and those can be of course then tied to different events. Farmville 3 has really light events at the moment. Some solo events that you just gather certain resources, but it's clear that they are going and based on our data to increase the potential should go to a deeper social events and a more kind of well constructed event loops. So actually, I just checked. It's 78 out of 100, which is really good score. One thing I also want to mention. We talked about the demographics, Facebook demographics earlier. We also have our own kind of demographic kind of estimates based on the feature set here in Game Refinery. And when I'm looking at the game Farmville 3 in our system, it seems to skew a bit more towards the female, like it's 61 female, 39 male, and also the age group like 25-44 is the vast majority, 52%. So looking at those figures also for Farmville 3, at least based on our kind of metrics and features, seems to be kind of
how do you guys pull the demo information on your side?
Good question. So we've done a lot of a year and a half worth of surveys and research in US. So this is US demographic data that I'm talking about here. We did it for hundreds of games, of course, using a full thorough set of questions to also capture the market penetration of the games. Once we had that data, and because we have those over 200 features tracked from all of the games that we surveyed, we were able to model using statistical methods to model the kind of feature sets, demographic appeal. And then when we analyze the game and we get the 200 or so features, we also get the kind of demographic appeal of the feature set of that game. And of course, we tested that a lot with our clients, and it's looks pretty, and it's pretty good. And as I said, it's based on the feature set. So it's interesting to see that kind of data as well.
Jeff, do you want to talk about your thoughts, both from and again, like combining your thoughts in terms of gameplay and systems? And I know you've got some slides, so feel free to jump into those whenever you'd like as well.
Yeah, so one thing that I kind of was taken aback by was just like all the different sort of progression systems that Farmville 3 was throwing at us. You first have the farm orders that you've seen Heyday and stuff like that. Then you have player level, which is a mainstay of farm games, and then you have this sort of story tasks, um, and it makes it kind of hard to know where to focus on, especially since player level, the experience you get it mainly comes from animal acquisition. And you get animals, unless you buy animals, you mostly get them either from animal, breeding as you collect animals, or by completing enough farm orders to unlock the next crate. And not all crates from farm orders will give you animals. It just makes it hard to like if you want to progress, if you want to continue the story and unlock that next plot, like it makes it really sort of hard to know where to focus, and especially if you're a spender, how do you spend to sort of get to the next level and get the story? Yeah, you can keep buying animals, but then you may run out of space. I do like their animal sort of breeding system. It is very sort of self-containing, which is nice. But I honestly wish that they would just put less emphasis on player level and put more emphasis on story and story tasks. It seems to be what a lot more games are doing, and if you gate more things by story versus by level, then you may have more monetization opportunities to get players to pay to sort of progress through the story more versus having it kind of be locked by animal collection, which is the main source of EXP. And in my experience, playing it, especially as I progress from early game to mid game, I find myself just trying to level up. That's my sole focus, and that's mainly completing orders. Since I can't spend in the game, the story, like oftentimes I will see the next part of the story and I just can't do anything with it until I level up. And that may take, sometimes I could do it within a day, but sometimes it takes many days. And it's not a satisfying progression as, say, like a game like Gardenscapes or Homescapes where, that next thing is really, you're very close to it. Just playing a few more games may get you to that next thing. Or if you want to spend to make sure you win those games, you can do that as well. I think there's just a missed opportunity for them to monetize off of their story because they're utilizing outdated player level gating.
Right.
I just have a question on the previous slide. Actually, I was wondering, is it actually bad to have too many of these attention-seeking points in the game for this kind of game? Because at the end of the day, it is a timer-based game, and at least right now, in my early sessions, I'm level 10 or 11 right now, and I do run out of things to do while things are baking and whatnot. So actually, that was going to be one of the another opportunity area that I was going to call out is just having deep content. And in a timer-based game, having these multiple sources of tasks actually probably help works out a little bit in a way, because then you just have, while something is cooking over here, you could focus on something else over here, kind of a thing. So what do you think about that?
I'm not opposed to having too many things. It's just too many progression systems. That's the problem, right? If you took out the whole story part and it was just the farm orders and player level unlocking all that at least for me, from my end as a player, gives me more direction. I should just focus on farm orders, collecting animals, stuff like that. Level up, I get to unlock this stuff. But yeah, I'm being presented with a story that I want to. To me, at least as a player, the story tasks were a lot more interesting because it really was telling me specifically, okay, do this, do this, do this. But I find myself often gated because I can't even do that because I need to wait to level up. And so having a game tell me that I should be doing this, but I can't because I'm level gated, and especially if I can't, it's hard to spend to get around that level gate. I just think that slows me down and makes the game a little less fun. But I have no qualms with like having a lot of stuff to do. I think that's what we've come to expect from farm games. I just wish that level did not determine so much in how I could progress on the story side.
And
Right. I mean, Jeff, do you think that, I mean, one of the things I haven't seen in games like this is a very clear sort of daily progression objective, right? So like you look at a game like Clash Royale, it's like, okay, I want to complete these, I want to get 10 stars for the day, and then, you get a chest. But like for a game like this, and Manya, you're saying a timer-based game, if there was like a daily quest with a bar that fills up that says, you need to complete 10 orders for the day, and then just really be highly aligned and focused in terms of like what your objectives are for the day, do you think that would help, or for this kind of game, does that not make sense?
I think you can do something like that in this game. I mean, obviously with games like Clash Royale, and other games, I mean, there's a gameplay associated with those stars.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we don't have gameplay here necessarily. I mean, it's resource management at the end of the day. But imagine, for the farm orders, instead of giving you points on that progress bar, you got a star for every farm order that you completed, or 2 stars or 3 stars, depending on the difficulty of the farm order. And then, getting that chest, getting those 10 stars means completing, 5 to 10 farm orders. I could see... and they kind of do that with the point system, but I think it could be broken down more simply into stars, and then having.
Yeah. I meant something on a daily cadence, basically. But sorry.
Yeah, I have to agree though that utilizing this the narrative side of the game to drive a very strong quest system, which like further unlocks. The real overarching story of the game, I think that's really going to define the backbone of the game in the future. I feel it's definitely going to come, and probably coming through farm hands. And I just feel, right now, I guess we're not seeing it because of, just lead times associated with, writing up narrative for these things. But that's definitely, as Jeff was saying, that's definitely the way to go.
Right. Yeah. I think it'd be interesting if there was a game that tried to more highly surface like a daily objective, like a Clash Royale or like a Toon Blast. But to your point, Jeff, that is highly tied with gameplay. So I mean, I don't know. So okay.
At least what was being done on Farmville 2 was using this narrative to bring that weekly or twice in 1 week kind of cadence to things. So. Yeah, it wasn't a daily thing, but probably this, splitting a week into 2 big chunks and then getting stuff done within those chunks for a timer-based game probably also then gives you enough time.
Yeah, and I think the other challenge is because, this is like a farm game and you're seeing your farm and stuff, you don't want to put, like a Toon Blast or whether you get like 50 HUD icons on your home screen, right? And so that covers up the stuff. So I understand the challenge there, but I thought it might be interesting. Right, and Manu, did you have any other thoughts in terms of gameplay or meta?
Right. Cool. Okay. No, like I said in the start, for me, the biggest thing is the balancing side, or the biggest positive is the balancing. And I just feel like even for a technical soft launch, they've been able to like maintain a really good synchronization between these 4 elements of the order board, animals, farm hands, and the land unlocks. And it'll be really interesting to see where they take it. Once the narrative aspect comes into the whole thing, then how do they build how do they build like this live ops cadence on a week, 2 weeks, monthly basis kind of a thing attached to narrative? But yeah, this for me, these are like the one big positive and one big opportunity.
Right. And then maybe before we jump into our scoring, some of the other kind of open questions and thoughts in terms of the game that I thought were interesting was one, so Farmville 2, there's 2 SKUs of Farmville 2, right? And so I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on why they did that. I mean, sometimes, there's a perspective that you want to try and cover as many genres as possible and kind of trying to defend your genre by launching multiple SKUs with different fiction, but yeah, but then there's always like the thought, well, will this cannibalize or other games, blah blah blah. From my experience, I've never seen a lot of cannibalization, even if you launch the same SKU. From my experience at Sega, Sonic Dash 2, I mean, there isn't much cannibalization, if at all. But yeah, do you guys have any thoughts on multiple SKUs for Farmville 2?
At least from my side, I feel it's more on that line of, doing a different theme so that they can probably incrementally expand the audience that they're getting with the same kind of gameplay, and then keeping this whole audience in that ecosystem.
Right.
I don't know if there is an inside story, and if there is, I don't know what it is. So I feel it's more of this kind of a portfolio expansion, audience incremental expansion kind of play. But yeah.
Right. And the one other issue I wanted to discuss is like sort of the word on the street. The rumor was that Farmville 3 was, sort of 6 years in development, 4 different dev teams. I know the latest team, which is the Helsinki team, ex-EA SimCity Build It team. There's a lot of great, like people say really great things about that studio and that team. And Joel, they're right in your backyard. You know those guys? Like, can you provide some additional color in terms of who they are and kind of what you know about those guys? Publicly safe information.
Yeah. I know those guys. Of course, living in the same city, not too far from our office. Really talented bunch of people. As you pointed out, they have had some good stuff in the past that have been had their hands on. So that's basically it, and that kind of can disclose here. But as said, I think that's mainly one part of reasons why I kind of see Farmville 3 also having a possibly really bright future ahead, because I think the team working on it knows what to do, and they're gonna have the track record to prove it. So that's very basically it.
All right, cool. So maybe we could wrap this up with our scoring. Joel, 1 to 10, what do you think? What's your score?
I'm kind of balancing between 7 and 8. I want to give this 8 just because taking into account the genre. If you think about the genre, I think that here is Farmville 3 has the potential to become the kind of genre leader. If, as pointed out before, they kind of after this technical soft launch, they bring in the kind of diverse, comprehensive enough event loop, live ops, and then of course deeper social elements with co-ops and guild mechanics and kind of engagement layer to the game as well. So let's give it an 8, and I have high hopes on this.
Yeah, and so for myself, I also will give it an 8, and the reason why I'm giving it an 8 is like, one, from like a product innovation perspective, not an 8 for sure, but I think from fitting what the market is looking for, actually, I think it might be an 8, because sometimes you can do too much, sometimes you can innovate too much, and then also, if I were to evaluate the game right now, I think Jeff's absolutely right. Like, the systems need to be worked out, the monetization needs to be worked out. But if I'm saying at this phase, like if they were in a further stage of soft launch, I would give it a 7. But because they're in tech soft launch right now, I would probably say an 8 for me right now. Manu?
Yeah, I think I too would give it an 8, purely based on the opportunity that I see out there. And I also met this team a little bit in the past, and they're a brilliant bunch of guys. And I think I think it's like really big things for this game. I would also say that I think from a pure revamp of the IP perspective, the revamp itself is a real big opportunity for Zynga compared to what Zynga has on the market right now for simulation. So that in itself is quite huge. On top of that, they have the minor innovations going on. So it's a little bit of a probably a little bit of a hot sauce on this category.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, they have the big IP to like blow wind into their UA sales, and finally they have these big opportunities of adding the narrative in the game, social aspects, and events. So that it's very, very fertile ground.
Jeff?
For now, I'm going to give it a 6. I think they've set themselves up to actually have a pretty good game with pretty decent monetization with both the farmhand system and story narrative possibilities. But because it is technical soft launch and they haven't focused on those things yet, I want to wait and see what they're ultimately going to do with those.
Yeah.
As it stands now, I would give it a 6 though, because I think it has some real possibilities for sure.
Yeah. Well, if anyone from Zynga is listening, I would give it a 9 if they hired you, Jeff, to help. But anyway, all right, cool. Well, I think that basically wraps it up. There you have it. Farmville 3 looking, I guess generally promising and still early in technical soft launch, but could do pretty well. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Joe.